So this video is going to be fitting the side braces. What do you think of my high-tech graphics? It's James Cameron. I'm expecting James Cameron on the phone any minute, wanting some help with the next Avatar film. Right, so by side braces I'm on about these bits. So this one here, part of the MS UK requirement is the roll bar's 50mm CDS, and this has to have at least one brace. It can either go forward or back, but it has to be one brace of the same 50mm. So that's going to be 50mm, and this is going to be 32. But obviously I do this one first. It would need notching up the top there. That's onto the top of the roll cage bar. Kind of with the positioning of these, I've been a little bit, it's the same with this one, is because there's such a radius. If you have it down here, it's the widest possible point. Obviously up there is the highest point, but then it's a fair bit narrower. Now for this cross brace, obviously I don't want it narrow because it then encroaches on the passenger compartment, which is a little bit bigger than the Exo Booster, but still very tight. So I think I'm going to do it literally as where the curve starts. So we're pretty well at maximum, but then at the other end down the bottom, it's going on to where the front roll bar is, or the dash roll bar, whatever you want to call it. So down here, obviously, I need to weld this all the way around first before I can do anything there. Right, aside to this job, I've been having second thoughts about this. I don't know if your it's fallen off here, but I did have a potential cross here. So then this any stress here went through there, and went up to the roll bar. Again, it's something I've not seen. Blah blah blah. Anyway, whilst looking at this, I had one of those. Why are you doing it like that, Sean? And with this bit in here, why not just have a cross from cross to corner to corner, corner to corner? So that's the corners, the front suspension mount. With the cross in there, you then have some other triangulation on the front rear suspension mounts. And because that's the highest point, all I need is just a thin bit of bar or something similar down the middle that would be a kind of a bodywork support, because it's just going to have panels in each section with the chassis showing. So I think after this being, what were we on? This was Mark 5. When I'm seeing stuff in reality, I'm getting that kind of, well, why don't you do it like this? So basically what I'm saying is, instead of having a bar that goes from there up to there on both sides, I have a bar from there to there and a bar from there to there. Obviously those two bars will be longer and heavier than those two, but I won't need this stuff as well. So I think I haven't 100% decided on that one yet. I'm not sure whether I'll snip my model around or no, but I think that might be a change of plan I'm going to go for. I mean, I'm kind of assuming that this change of plan is, you know, for all the time I spent in front of the computer, well, not in front of the computer, all the time I spent with bits of paper and obviously doing that 3D model. I guess this sort of thing that happens with most builds like this, that you sort of get to a certain point and think, why have I done it like that? Wouldn't it be better if? But what I need to do is just let those thoughts sink in, just in case I'm missing something. By the way, I do like getting all the comments and things, and certainly comment on that if that idea of that change. If you think it's better, if you think it's worse, if you think it makes no difference at all, it'd be really useful if you could comment below and let me know what you think. So I just mark up where I need to start getting the angle grinder in. This sort of stuff doesn't need to be kind of 100% accurate, because it is very much a trial and error kind of thing. I'm sure people with much more experience of this can probably just do it all by eye without thinking, but I don't have that experience. After, I don't know, half an hour or so of trial, mark, grind, I'm fairly happy with that. Maybe the gap is a little bit big there. Okay, so here's a couple of top tips from Sean. So when you're doing tubes like this, I find it very useful to mark the top because it's quite easy to muddle them up. Pass, because it's passenger side, and also where I'm going to be notching the top, I put a line on there so as I know which is top when it goes in the notcher. I found it ever so easy to screw that up. Anyway, so there we are. Top tips. So all set up to notch that. You can see where I've marked it. I'm going very conservative. I'd rather take 2 or 3 cuts here than do one that's too much, because this tube is quite expensive and I don't have any spare. Lots of lube, and go as slow as I possibly can. I think the actual problem I've been having with these saw drills isn't so much them getting too hot and then blunting. So I've been snapping teeth off, and I reckon that happens when I get that grabbing thing. After, I don't know, about an hour of flapping around, I got the top and bottom fitting quite nicely. The one error I did make was chopping too much out of that side tube, where I was saying before, obviously the notch needs to be massively offset, but I forgot it basically needed to gone straight in there. I need to put in a triangle web gusset in there anyway, so it's not a big deal. It just means if I put that and just demonstrate there, the gap there is slightly bigger than I'd want it to be, but it's not that big a deal. I can fill that with a bit of weld. I've got to do the other side. I'm trying to think of a way of saving myself time by using this as a template, but of course on the other side it's a mirror image, so I can't. I was thinking first I can just do that thing, you know, where you put a piece of paper around and sellotape it together to make a tube, mark this up, cut it, and then use it to mark the other tube, but it will be the wrong way around. So it's about 10:30, which definitely makes it coffee o'clock, so I'm going to go and get the kettle on and see if inspiration hits. My wife must be psychic. Just as I was saying about going to make a coffee, she comes back to the garage with a coffee and 2 chocolates. If you're not watching this at the time of year that this is recorded, we're at Christmas Eve at the moment. My wife's a pharmacist, so they get given all these boxes of chocolates and things from the regular patients, which is really nice, because being a pharmacist seems to be a pretty shitty job at the moment, and it does cheer them up a bit. Anyway, so there's the inspiration. Let's do the thinking. The inspiration's not hit yet, so I've marked out where I need the little gusset to be and marked it out on here, and it gives me a chance to play with, whoa, yes, the plasma cutter. Okay, so I'm going to use a bit of metal as a guide. It's easier to clamp down, I've got more of it. So I've set that, because I've got the end on here with the wheels on, so I've set that, so hopefully I can just do a and we have the right size. Let's see how it goes. I think this might be my new second favourite tool. Obviously the TIG welder is my favourite and always will be. That's not too bad, is it? I mean, it's a bloody sight quicker than using snips and that. Of course, that's one of the side problems with these plastic things. Yeah. It's funny because, of course, when you're welding, it doesn't catch fire because of the argon. Good morning. So it's the whole next day out here in the garage. Just between me and you, it's Christmas Day today, and I've snuck out in the garage. It doesn't sound, it's not as bad as it sounds. I've had a lovely breakfast with the family, and my kids are both uni age, so they're now gone to work serving tables in a local restaurant till about 5 o'clock to earn some beer money for when they're back at uni. My wife is doing God knows what in the house, so my best place is out the way at the moment anyway. That sounds, I know that sounds awfully 1970s sitcom, but well, there we are. Maybe that's where I am in life now. Anyway, last night over tea and thinking about what we're saying about wrapping paper around the end of the tube to transfer the shape to the other one, between the three of us, we kind of worked out a bit of a brainwave. So we do the paper tube wrap thing, but I then cut the tape and then do the paper the opposite way round, so the outside becomes the inside, and that should give me mirror image of the shape on the bottom. So let's have a go and see if it works. Let's give this a go in true Blue Peter fashion. I've cut a bit of paper that goes around, and let's just cut a bit of tape off. And I think if I use a Sharpie to mark where that is, hopefully when it's inside out, my Sharpie mark should have soaked through the paper. Draw around. Okay, let's take that off and that off. Now if I turn that inside out, that should be mirror image. So I'm going to cut along the line. Do you know what I've just realised is that piece I've just cut off would be mirror image, wouldn't it? It's funny, isn't it? You sort of suddenly all these answers leap at you. Okay, so I've got my shape drawn on here, and I could go at it the same way as I did last time with the grinder, or I could use the new tool. Let's have a go with this. Oh, that's certainly a lot easier than bashing away with a grinder on that. Obviously, I need to finesse it a little, clean it up a little. But that's a lot more fun than a grinder. About 10 minutes of grinding has got me or maybe a bit more than 10 minutes. It's got that into a nice good fit, so that's obviously much quicker than it was for the other side, and also it's a better fit as well. I will still put the same gussets in this side as I have the other side, although they're less necessary. The one underneath still needed. They're less necessary because I've done a better job, but I kind of feel it'd look a bit odd if I have it on one side and not the other. So now I've marked up the top with a line. Whoop. Oh, well caught, Sean. I marked up the top with a line so that I can then do my paper thing on the other end of that tube and transfer to there. I've marked up the second end, and also marked both tubes with a line at the top so I can line up the little template. But the one thing is now, of course, is how far along does the template need to be. It's quite tricky measuring the length of something that both ends are in and out. So I'm going to stick the tape measure up onto this one and try and work out the best point to measure. I've recut that end so that it roughly fits in the vain hope that it would be okay. But if I come back here, you can probably see that side is now 5 centimeters lower than that side, which now I could, because you know this is my design and all that, I could lower that 5 centimeters to make it match that one, but I want that as high as possible to give me the best triangulation and support. So I'm gonna have to order another piece of 50mm CDS tube. Which is a bugger, but I suppose, you know, doing this for the first time, that kind of error is almost inevitable. And those of you who actually know me and know a little bit about ADHD would almost certainly know that kind of cutting things without rechecking and rechecking again, it's the kind of thing that's going to happen. It's a bit crap, but that's the way it is. Hello. So, after a few days break from being in the garage, I would say an enforced break from being in the garage because I couldn't get any of the bits I needed because of course there's no delivery on the good old Twixmas time. I now have a nice shiny new piece of 50mm CDS so as I can try and redo the other cross member that I screwed up before. So this time I'm going to copy the shape off of there, do the inside out thing, transpose it onto there, cut that, then put it on that. I will do the same with that end, do the paper trick, but, and this is the big but, before I decide, or before I mark up that new piece of tube, I will put it in place and make sure that I mark the bloody thing the right way around so I don't end up with another wasted piece of metal. Well, my second favourite tool is just been turning the air blue. That's why I haven't videoed it. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with this bloody thing. When it works, it's brilliant, but I just seem to have so much trouble getting the bloody thing to work. Once it starts going, it's great. That's the top one kind of roughly done. Now I need to mark up in the correct place for the bottom bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my tracing off there, and then I think what I'll do is turn the tracing into a tube and slide it up here and get the length right by putting that tube against this one and sliding it up and down till it's right. Lots of careful grinding, and that one is now a reasonable fit. What I've got to do now is just make sure that that and that are both the same height across there. I think, looking at it, that side may be very slightly higher. I'm going to use the trusty angle meter. So on top of the roll bar it's saying up 0.15. Across here is saying 0.4 down on the driver's side. So I think that's close enough at the moment, because I suspect that things might move slightly when I weld up. So what I'm going to do is get this all cleaned up, ready to weld. And I think what I'll do is I'll weld one side in and then make sure they're both the same before tack, or basically tack one side, then make sure the other side's the same and then tack it, and then make sure it's the same still after tacking, and so on. It's funny because half a degree different doesn't kind of sound all that much, but I know if one side is only a few millimeters out from the other side, that it will be something. It's not going to alter the car, because basically everything's square from being on the build table. But it will annoy the hell out of me if one side is slightly, every time I look at the car, if one side is slightly different from the other, it will annoy the hell out of me. So I've got to make sure that this is pretty well spot on. Good morning. So we're on a whole new day, and I've got a new thank you person added to my list. Came up with a really good suggestion about this top mount that I've been waffling on about. Unfortunately, the really good suggestion was slightly too late, because the answer to your question, I have already fully welded it. So I'm going to go ahead and use the 40mm box section welded on there as I was talking about, because I think it'd be harder to cut that off. However, massive thanks for your suggestion. If only I'd have thought of that myself before I welded that on. That's definitely the route I would have gone. And I suspect when I get to do the back suspension, you will see your solution in action. So cheers for that. Anyway, so today, whoops, oh dear, yeah, don't leave things on the floor. You can trip over when you're walking around talking and videoing, so can't possibly be thinking about where you're going. So I'm a bit late out here this morning. You might be able to hear it's cold, fan heat is going. These all ready now, so I think I probably said on the end of yesterday, I'm going to tack weld in whichever one is lower. Then I'm going to make sure the other side is exactly the same, tack weld it in, then check they're the same. And these can remain tack welded in for some time. But first things first, it's coffee time. Oh yeah, and it's going to sound a bit beggy, and I don't like being beggy, but I have a few friends who run channels, and they have this tip jar thing. So I've added a tip jar, so if you are getting any entertainment from my videos, or just feel sorry for me and think, oh, I've got a couple of spare quid, I can chuck it in and help Sean's budget, then I think there'll be, hopefully if I remember, there'll be a thingy come down there that would take you to a link to a tip jar, which is basically just a PayPal thingy, and that would be great if you could do that. Here's this morning's top tip for you. If you've built yourself a nice build table that's on wheels, don't move it when you've got a nice cup of coffee on the build table. You might have less coffee than you thought you had. I wish the ratio of prepping to actual welding was the opposite way around. It's one of those things that takes 10 times longer to prep than actually do. And of course doing's the bit I want to do. Anyway, it's all prepped. I'm going to point this bloody camera. There we are. Tack weld. A couple of tacks up the top as well. I think we're okay. Let's take a look from back here. I reckon we're pretty well okay. I'll just double check with the tape measure. You can see where I don't know if it's come out on the camera, I marked a little line at the top of that one and transposed it across to that side. I transposed it, I just measured from the bottom up. You can see, it's getting a bit closer. That side I would say is probably a couple of mil higher than that side, but that is plenty good enough. That's the top bit tacked in, and the bottom bit is now ready for tacking. So I do tack, tack, recheck, tack, tack. I have main cross member tacked in. I have, what do we call that, secondary one tacked in. Seems to be pretty well lined up, so I'm quite pleased with that. Time for a minor fanfare, as I have actually remembered to turn off the gas before I've gone indoors, washed my hands, taken my shoes off, sat down and watched the TV, and my wife has said, "Did you turn the gas off?" Which is normally the time of day that I remember to turn the gas off. Here we are, on a whole other day, with a whole other cup of coffee. Oh, lovely. Right, yeah, so I have just tack welded in the other side. I've not videoed it all because it's all much the same. It's Sunday and I like listening to Keris Matthews on the radio, and if I keep stopping, Keris keeps going away. That's the end of this one. I'm trying to do it, I say, each one with a little subject. So we've got the cross braces in, all tack welded in. I won't fully weld those until I need to, just in case something's gone wrong. And the next one will be doing those suspension mounts, I think. So catch me when that one comes out. Bye.